Today, I want to talk about bullying. I want you to think about what you would do in a scenario where you would see somebody that you care deeply about or that you love being bullied. What would you do? I'm willing to bet that you would go over to that situation and you would put a stop to it. That you would even put yourself as a barrier between the one that you love and the person who's doing the bullying and tell them to stop. Whatever it is that you would say, I'll leave that to your imagination. But you would tell them that it's unacceptable, that they have no right to treat your loved one that way or to say those things. And you would encourage them to stop. And then you would turn to your loved one and say, none of what they said was true. And you don't have to put up with this treatment. And you would pull them out of the environment. And I'm willing to bet that you would do this because of how much you love and care about that person. But what about yourself? What would you do for you? And I'm not just talking about when you're being bullied by somebody else, but when you're being bullied by your own self. When you have those thoughts of, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not experienced enough, I'm not enough in some way, shape, or form. This is literally being a bully to ourselves. And a lot of times we just sit and take it. We believe it to be true. We're thinking it, so it must be true, right? I'm here to tell you no. And that's the shift. I'm here to encourage you that the next time that your brain starts to bully you, that you put a stop to it the same way that you would for your loved one. That as soon as you start to think that you are not enough, that you would step in between yourself and those thoughts and say, hey, no, you don't get to treat me that way. You don't get to speak to me that way. What you're saying isn't true. It's not real. It's not who I am. It's not what defines me. I'll admit, for as much as I was bullied by my peers growing up, I think I was my own worst bully of all. I literally would just sit there and have these thoughts and sink into them. I would let them shift my energy, which, as you know from previous shifts, totally affects our outcome and what we experience in life. For me, it just got to a point where enough was enough already. But how do you make that shift? How do you stop that? And I wish that I could take credit for the approach that I took, but I can't. I actually found this on an Instagram reel, I think it was. I couldn't even tell you what platform or what creator, but what she talked about was naming her brain. And as soon as I heard this, I was like, oh my gosh, this sounds so ridiculous. But as I continued to listen to her experience with it, I thought, you know what? Why not? It's worth a shot. And the second that I opened up to this idea, a name popped in my brain. My brain's name is Erica. And I'm here to tell you that I don't know anybody named Erica. I don't have any clients named Erica. I don't interact with the name Erica. I'm not reading a book where a character or watching a movie where the character's name was Erica. I have no idea where this name Erica came from. All I can think about is that this is what my soul wanted me to do. So I named my brain Erica. And then I just experimented with it over the next few weeks. Was totally open and completely unattached to anything about this experiment. And so anytime that I had a negative thought pop up into my head, I would pause and say, Erica, not today. Erica, that's not how we think. That's not what I think. That's not what I believe. That's not how I really feel. And then I would offer forgiveness to myself for thinking that thought. And then I totally dropped it and let it go by going and doing something else. I diverted my attention, but not until I acknowledged that this was not my truth and I forgave myself for even thinking that thought. Those are the first two really important steps. Because if we miss those two steps and we just go to diversion and we just think about something else, then we really kind of are subconsciously adopting that thought as being true because we're not correcting that it's not. So this is the shift that I want you to try this week. Anytime that negative thought comes up, I want you to think about visualizing, like literally seeing your best friend being bullied across the play yard and you running over, stepping in between, creating a barrier between your best friend and the bully and saying, no, you don't get to talk to her that way. And then turning to your best friend and saying, what they said isn't true. Let's forgive them so that we can move on. So try this and see what shifts for you. Hi, I'm Kimberly Romano, Indian wedding photographer turned brand photographer and human design reader. Thank you for tuning into Shifted, the podcast that is here to spark a shift in you that creates big change in your energy, perspective, and direction. And if this episode sparked a shift in you, then subscribe and leave a review sharing what your shift was. Not only will this help others discover this podcast, but your shift can inspire them to have a shift of their own. Please remember, the content you hear in this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and should not be taken as legal, health, or financial advice. For professional guidance, I encourage you to seek out a trusted expert near you. Thank you again for tuning into Shifted. Until next time, keep leaning into the shift.